Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 9 of I Think I Can podcast, a place where I will teach you to think differently in order to get different results. Well, today I have someone very special with me. Her name is Elle Russ, and I've been following Elle for quite some time, starting with the Primal Blueprint podcast that she hosted for 7 years, that had 500 plus episodes and 20 million downloads. It was an amazing platform for Elle to speak on, and eh, I just felt her confidence speaking through that episode, and I always saw her as an extremely confident, authentic person. And she's female on top of that, which was amazing. So when she wrote the book Confident as Fuck, I was like, okay, perfect. This is what this woman really needed to do, and I'm so glad she did it. So welcome, Elle.
Thank you
So
so much
wonderful to
for
have you
that.
here. Okay. Well, I wanted to start the interview off by asking, what was your personal experience that you can think of where you use the mindset, I think I can?
Oh my gosh, hundreds of times
Yeah.
in my life. I think what's behind this in being able to go, I think I can, even if you haven't done it yet before, but you're like, I think I can, is what is a telltale characteristic of confident people, which is I believe in my ability to learn it. Like if I don't know it now, I believe that I have the capacity to figure it out or be a quick learner, which then would not hold someone who is confident back from doing something out of the ordinary or go into an arena which they didn't know. Not to say that any of those endeavors aren't a little scary, but confident people would be like, I'm probably figured out. So one of the here's a perfect example. So I was already writing sketch comedy for many years. I had written like a screenplay or so, and then I was at an ocean, like an underwater film festival in Savannah, Georgia.
Hmm.
And we're at some sort of, after viewing party, a cocktail hour. And I'm speaking with this woman who's an underwater filmmaker. And she said, I heard you're a writer, because I guess someone had told her. And she said, I need someone to help write a documentary. I've, collected over all this, 700 hours of footage. I've traveled here and there, and I've got this great story, but I just need a writer. So in that moment in my head, she's like, "Would you be interested?" Now, in that moment in my head, it was a quick thing. But the person who's not confident would probably be like, "Well, I'm a writer, but like I've only ever written sketch comedy. I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess I could, that kind of thing." In
Hmm.
my mind, I was just like, "I'll figure it out. I don't know what the hell is entailed in writing a documentary. All I know is that, like, you know what? I've written other stuff. I'd probably be able to figure this one out. If I was able to figure out the other stuff, I'll be able to do this." So my initial reaction was, I'd love to. And in that moment, I was more focused on what a great feather in my cap to branch out as a writer, to go from comedy, right, to like writing a documentary. And of course, later on, I became a book author. So that was a moment of probably that kind of, I think I can. That I
Hmm.
can think of as being very specific and something that people would come across often. So, again, I would have talked myself out of that opportunity. Now, granted, there was a moment where I agreed to it, and then I was like, "Oh shit! Now I've got."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Uh-oh, now I got to kind of
Exactly.
deliver." But because I'm confident, I was confident that I would deliver, that I would learn what I needed to do, that I'd figure it out. And so, again, that's just one example of many where, in that moment, I choose to say, "I think I can," and not say all of the reasons why I think I might not be able to.
Yeah, it's sort of like you said, you just say you make a decision in the moment. Yes, I'm going to do it, and I'll figure the rest out later.
Now
Yeah.
you wanna be now again, you have to have some level of confidence to agree to that. Like, if you really don't think you can deliver, then yeah.
Y
Or if you agree to it and then you really don't think you can deliver, yes, you're gonna have to go back and say that you can't. I think the difference is I felt like I will be able to deliver, and I will no matter what. I'm gonna find a way, and I'm gonna figure this out because 'cause I'm confident enough that I'll be able to figure it out.
Now, would you say you always, like, this is the big question though, right? Like, I feel like you know,
Were you always
were
confident?
yeah, like when you were 5, like, did you jump off, like, whatever, the cliff with everybody else or, you know
Well, it's funny because I think people think that this is an inherent quality, and it's not. Confidence is not an anchored quality within you. It's really the sum of the thoughts you think and the actions you take. So everybody can do it. But most people think, well, I wasn't born that way. I wasn't raised that way. Now, I will say, yes, I have probably a certain higher level of inherent confidence. It was always probably the way I was raised to by my mother, being like, you can do anything, you're the greatest, everything you do is wonderful, which is how every child should be treated by any parent. When a kid
Right.
comes home with a terrible drawing, is the best thing you've ever seen, right? That's how
Yeah.
you parent. So luckily I did have a parent like that. But even if you didn't, if you had a parent who told you you were crap, you'd never amount to anything, you're an idiot, you still can overcome that. It might take a little extra work there. But here's the thing: even though I had that base, there were things along my life that chipped away at the confidence. A teacher's comment, right? A group of friends, or life, or whatever. Subscribing to social construction on things, so you can kind of lose it. And so I had issues too, and things that really chiseled into my confidence. But yeah, so there's a story about my mother took copious notes in a baby book of mine, and for years, like first 5 years, 6 years of my life.
Mm.
And she pointed to an area in the book where she said, the boys on the playground would not allow her to play today, so she just pulled her pants down, mooned them all, and called them fuckers. I was 3. Okay, so now where did I learn the word fuckers? Well, I grew up in downtown Chicago. I had an older brother. I mean, listen, we were all out there in the city, just people, all the
Yeah.
swear words were known. My mother, who's very proper, very classy sort of lady who rarely curses, was horrified at that moment that her 3-year-old, and I guess I just pulled my pants down, moon them. Now, someone might be like, well, that's pretty aggressive. But see, in my mind, I was like, you're not going to let me play with you? F you. Like, I don't need you anyway, or whatever. So, I mean, it was a little bit of aggressive form of speaking up, but I certainly made my opinion known. And so I think that probably says a lot, that story right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So, yeah, you grew up in Chicago,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah, I grew up in
Mhm.
downtown Chicago, which I believe really spawned a lot of uh, accidental pushed on you confidence. So when I grew up in a big city, uh, you're dodging gunfire,
Mm.
creepy people, thousands of people. You're constantly watching your back. When I grew up there, it's even more dangerous now, but it was just as dangerous. And so I think this sort of, and we lived in a lot of fight or flight. You're kind of on edge. You're watching your back all the time. You're in that kind of state. So I think
Mhm.
there's a way that you almost have to move through the world with a little bit of confidence when you grow up in a big city. Like if you don't push through that crowd, you're never going to get a block. You know what I mean? Like I feel
True.
like if you stuck me in the middle of any crowded city, I'd be able to, like a video game, get through that
Y
crowd. Um,
yeah.
where now I've lived in the mountains in the middle of nature for so long now that if you did plot me back in the city, I'd probably get right back into it. But there might be a moment of like, oh wait, I'm not used to this energy. But you kind of have to have a little bit of aggressive energy and a confident way about you, because you learn these things when you grow up about living in the big city and the dangers that could come up, where maybe kids who were raised in the suburbs or rural communities weren't taught the things we were taught.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm the complete opposite of you. I grew up in a rural community, and I never felt like, I had to watch my back ever. It was the type of thing where my mother would, literally kinda just say, at 8 a.m., "See you guys," and we would be playing in ditches and around dangerous equipment and stuff like that, but I don't know, Elle, like, I might have to challenge you there. Like, I feel like there's some of my clients who are highly anxious
Mm,
with low confidence
yes.
because they always had to watch their back. Like, I mean,
Well, it can create it can either create one thing, sort of an awareness or a fear. And I don't think I had the fear part, and maybe that's the difference. But here's the truth. There are people who are very confident in an ability in something and they have low self-esteem. So when I talk about confident as fuck, I am talking about inside and out. Now, when I talk about the outside, I don't mean you have to go become a speaker or, any of this stuff,
Mm,
but you're going to need it even as a stay-at-home mom. You're going to need confidence to speak up, model to your children. You may come across another parent of a friend of your child that's
mhm,
you get into some embroiled in something. What are you going to do? So
mhm,
you're going to need it no matter what. From the bedroom to the boardroom, you're not going to get what
mhm,
you want in life unless you speak up. So everybody needs confidence. Most people want it or want more of it. But here's the thing, and this is an example in my book of John. So John is an anesthesiologist. You have to be really confident in that. You're putting people out for surgery, and you better wake them up or they're dead, right? So you have to have a
mhm.
high degree of confidence in your ability to be able to do it,
Yeah.
and he does. And then on the other hand, he's a spear fisherman, and this is again one of the highest degrees of confidence. You're 5 miles out in the ocean. It's freezing. You're with sharks and you're wrangling a 150-pound tuna to the surface that could take an hour. I mean, this is like those two things are the utmost in what we would think would be confident. Furthermore,
Mhm,
John's really good looking. He's tall and he's in shape and he knows it. Yet he is the most insecure, people pleasing individual I've ever
mhm,
ever met. And so sometimes we will gauge a person's confidence based on this outward betrayal or something they might do for a profession when inside John can barely talk to his neighbor or anyone else or can't speak up in a relationship. So I think a lot of people confuse confident abilities or confident personas or professions, and we think that that person has it on the inside, and that's not always true. So you have to
no.
worry about how you gauge it. So again, you can be confident in your ability of something, but still not have self-esteem. Now, the other thing too is you can have high self-esteem and maybe not even be that confident. You could just be a really great friend that everyone loves. And that
Mhm,
gives you all you need. That
mhm,
confidence is not about like going out there and being some badass CEO or whatever. I mean, if you want to, you're going to need it. But it really is because you need to navigate through life, most importantly, through drawing boundaries with other people so that you're getting what you want out of relationships or so
mhm.
that you're getting the raise at work or whatever it is that you want. That's really what confidence is about. What do you want? You're going to need the confidence to go out and get it. You're going to need to speak up. And that doesn't matter if you're leaving a relationship or you're in one that needs help. It's applicable across all lines, really. And
Mm,
so the inside and out is more important than just having outward confidence because I can speak to a room of 50,000 people with no problem. But when I get off the stage, how's my life looking? So again, we might look at someone and go, they're really confident. Another mistake is that when you see like a bully or someone at work, like this awful prima donna boss or something like that. And we think they're confident because they're blustery, they may be very aggressive and bold. That's not confidence either, because confident people are nice and they encourage other people and they
right.
don't have they don't compete. And so if you see someone like that, a lot of people who are shyer or less or more reserved would look at someone like that and go, well, if that's confidence, like I don't want it. And sometimes people who are more reserved are offended by the word confidence. This is even a friend of mine who's kind of an introvert, was like, well, like offended by the idea that this was a quality they needed to embrace. What I was able to show them that they actually are confident just because they're not blustery or the loudest person in the room. But the
Right.
quietest people in the room are often the most confident. They don't have anything to prove. And I guess that's my point, is that I want everybody to walk through life, walk into a party by themselves, an airport, I don't care where it is, and feel totally comfortable being themselves, not needing to prove themselves, not caring what other people think about them. And too many people do. They're so self-conscious about what everyone else is thinking about them. And that is
Yeah.
going to not bode well for life.
Right, right. Okay, so, what's the difference between cocky and confident then? That's just sort of more or less what you described. It's sort of
Yeah, and I
you
would say cocky is, well, we all know who these people are because you're somewhere and they're name dropping or like kind of bragging, like, or someone says something about themselves as good, and then they need to step up and be like, oh, well, I also did that. And that
yeah,
type of proving oneself vibe, that is not confidence. Confident people don't give a shit. They will let you discover that about them. We don't care about telling you who we are and like giving you our resume. And so when we
right.
see that, we feel the vibe. We're like, it feels gross when someone's bragging or name dropping because it's insecurity in our face. and no one
Mhm.
likes that. It's yucky.
Mhm.
It's like it's
Yeah.
embarrassing to watch someone in that scenario, so I would say, again, confident, not cocky. Again, it's then you would look at that person and go, if they're cocky, then they're probably insecure because they're trying to prove something to somebody.
Right. Right. Yeah, like when I have people when like especially women in my office who, are really centering on their lack of confidence, I guess, their poor self-esteem, and they feel like, this is who I am. This is how,
How
like,
I
this
am.
is the way I was born. This is blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I remind them, well, wait a minute though, look at yourself in other aspects of life. Like maybe you have an amazing relationship. Maybe you are like extremely successful in your work. So that's the way I usually try to challenge them is to say, how is it possible that you have this confidence in the way you work
Yes.
or in the workplace, but you don't have this, this confidence in your relationship, and I get them to pick through that a little bit.
Yes, this is perfect that you
I
mentioned
mean,
this
yeah,
because this is the crux of it right here. Most people who would say, I'm not confident, I'm at a loss, whatever, they're confident about something. They're confident about something. And this is perfect because
yeah.
this relates to someone that I know who did not make a friend until they were 35 years old. They're 55. Didn't make a friend.
Mm,
Why? Debilitatingly shy their whole life, raised by therapists, parents never talked to them, no emotions, really a disaster. So this person was at ground zero with confidence. They couldn't even talk to like somebody behind a coffee shop at a counter. Okay, like debilitating. Most people aren't there. Okay, most
yeah.
people are not at ground zero, but this guy was. So what did he do? Well, if you're at ground zero like that, then you definitely need to get a social coach, which he did, who took him out to malls and helped him start conversations with people that worked at places, and you go from there. If you met him today, you would never know. Most outgoing person in the world, his daughter, the most outgoing person in the world. People don't believe him when he talks about how debilitatingly shy he was, but he worked at it. But here's the thing, he's also an artist. And he's kind of a famous artist. He's a businessman, but he's like an artist on the
Mm,
side. So here's the interesting thing I pointed out to him. I'm like, it's so interesting that you can stand in front of your art in a show with all these people and greet them and whatever. So you have confidence there, but you can't go ask a girl out. So, he'll be
yeah.
debilitatingly shy there in like that kind of scenario. But then, so if you're out there and you think you don't have any confidence, there's probably somewhere where you do. Maybe you're confident that you're a great friend. Maybe you're confident that you just have a great
Mhm.
mind and you can see certain things another way, or that you're intuitive or you're a loving person. It doesn't really even matter what the thing is. There's something that you do feel confident about somewhere. And then you're
Right,
pointing out
and
like
therefore
the
they
dichotomy of saying like, "Well, I'm totally not confident." You're like, "Yeah, well, there's these other areas where you kinda are." And isn't that funny? And so that is usually the case with
yeah.
people. They're confident in one area or a few areas, but not others. Like John, confident in putting a needle in your spine and knocking you out for surgery or wrangling a sea creature from the ocean, but literally can't have a dumb conversation with his neighbor about like the neighbor painting their house. I mean, it just and it seems so interesting because you're like, wow, you're confident about really big things that are very risky and high stakes, yet the things that are not, you have no confidence in. So again, this is where like my book is, or where this work is, whether it's with me as a coach or any other, or with you, which is you got to get flat with
Mhm.
that because you're not even really being honest with yourself, and you can develop it in these other areas, you know?
Right, right, and it's sort of like, okay, now you have to do the work, right? It doesn't just miraculously come. You have to think that, well, okay, if I gained confidence in this area, maybe that had to do with a bit of my childhood. Whatever, like you say, if your parents are, if your parent constantly told you, "Oh my god, you're so great at school, you do such great work at school," and they see their parents, let's say, gliding through life easily when it comes to business, right? Like, I mean, they were always great, like models of business, and so they grow up with thinking that, hey, business is easy. I can build my own business as well. Like, this is simple. They've constantly told themselves those words in their head over and over, that self talk. But if they saw their parents struggling in relationships, or like you say, if their mom was extremely shy, they would have thought, "Oh, well, that's normal. I mean, this is what I do. I struggle in relationships. I'm extremely, yeah, introverted and shy." So that's the problem. Now they have to do the work themselves if their surroundings, if their experience didn't give them that opportunity to feel confident in one area as they went through life, now they have to do it, right? Like in the book you mentioned too, they have to be their own parent
You do, and that's the tough
and
thing.
start taking
So
care of themselves.
most of the time, if someone is asked, like, "Why aren't you confident?" You can relate it back to, like, what someone else had to say about it, or what they thought someone else might have said
Right.
or thought about it. It's always outside of oneself. Now, I love Byron Katie. A lot of people think she's very harsh in a lot of ways. She's a spiritual teacher, but just a brief story about her. She had been like a terrible mother, drinking, smoking, drugs, disaster. She hits rock bottom and she's in a halfway house and she has like an awakening, like a true like kind of crazy awakening. And when she comes out of this, people are like, "You're different." People start gravitating towards her. So she becomes this like teacher, spiritual teacher, and her kids when her daughter was like, "Oh, this is convenient, mom. So now we're gonna just erase all that shit that you treated us like this, you did this, and now you're some spiritual guru that had this thing or whatever, you know."
Right.
And she said, like you were a terrible mother. And Byron Katie said something that sounds so harsh, but it's so true. And she said it to her own daughter. She said, "Mother yourself." Oh my God. Like if I
Mm.
heard that from my own mother, I'd
Mm.
probably start crying. But it's true. But it's true. That's so true. So that daughter could go around the rest of her life blaming everything on her mother and how she treated her, or she can mother herself back to where the person she wants to be. So the thing is that what I've recognized with confidence, no one's going to do it for you. I mean, of course, you could have someone like me hold your hand, take a confidence course,
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you're going to actually have to speak up. So I'll give a very small example of someone that was in one of my confidence courses. And I think that this is great because we start small and you can look at the small ways. Don't It's like with manifestation. If you want to start learning about law of attraction, maybe you don't think about manifesting like a $10 million house. It's hard to wrap one's believability around that. You start maybe with a cup of coffee or something that you throw away that you don't even care about. And the same
Right.
goes with confidence. So maybe you don't speak up to get the raise right away. Maybe you do it in other ways. So this um, woman in my confidence course, and she's in her 50s, she was explaining a situation that most people would think would be kind of stupid, but this is really practical. She has been going to the same woman hairdresser for years,
Yeah.
and she did not like the way that the person was cutting
Mm.
her hair. Apparently, she was not doing a blunt cut, which is like just, I guess, a straight cut across, and she was doing some sort of textured thing, and it wasn't working with this woman's hair. And honestly, she was like, didn't know how to speak up about it. And now
Yeah.
most people go, "What the hell? Just go tell him you want something different." Like, what's the big deal? But to a lot of people, this is a big deal. So let me tell you what I
Yeah.
suggested to her, and it worked and it went great. Here's the thing: when people are not confident, they're often afraid about speaking up because they feel that it has to be a confrontational, negative thing. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be. You can absolutely approach it in the positive. So instead of, I'll just call her Sally. So instead of Sally going in and going, like, "I really don't like the way you've cut my hair these past few months. And I don't know, I think I told you once I wanted a blunt cut, but you didn't give it to me. But anyway, okay, that's a little bit, it doesn't feel right. Feels a little cutesy, feels a little like you're disappointed."
Right.
Instead, I told her, I go, "This is what you do." It was a two-parter. I asked her first, I said, "If you've known this woman for a long time, from the last time you was there, is there any subject you could bring up? Forget this. Like, did her daughter have a performance over the holidays? Did,
Mm.
like," she goes, "Oh, I have something. She did give me a conditioner that I really liked." And I said, "Great. Let's hold that off to the side. We've got and I'll tell you why I gave this to her." So then I was like, "Okay, so you're going to have to go in there and something like to the effect of, 'Hey, listen, like I noticed we've been doing this like textured cut. Can we try a blunt cut? I think I'd love to try that. I know it might take a couple of cuts, but could we do that?'" And then
Yeah.
after you ask it, I said, go right into the other thing. Get off the top and go, "Oh, and by the way, I love that conditioner you gave me." Because that gets you as the
Yeah.
person who's speaking
Yeah.
up off the uncomfortable thing right into something, and it's a throwaway.
Right.
It's not like a, "Look, you've been disappointed
Yeah.
with the
It
hairdresser." It's flippant. It's just like, "Oh, hey, can we do this?" And she just like her mind blown, like, I didn't realize it could be light. They all can be light, all the
Right.
requests. I mean, nothing has to be like, "Hey," and also if you come into it with a, like, "I'm worried about disappointing you or starting a conflict," that energy right there is already a conflict. So you just have to go into it, and it worked beautifully. Exactly what happened is what I thought would happen. The hairdresser was like, "Oh, yeah, totally, it might take a few rounds, but we'll start cutting it blunt." Moved on. How hard was that? Not hard, but for
Right.
her it was. But again, if you have things like that going on, that's where you start cleaning up those things and start to think about how you can present a request in a very light way. Another example would be my cousin years ago. Her dog died, and it was like her baby, and she was very upset and depressed. And I guess her
Mhm.
boyfriend at the time was not being as loving and whatever as she expected during this
Mm.
time. And so
Empathetic.
yeah, and so instead she just kind of like got into the aggravation of blaming him for not having read her mind. And I said, "Well, like, instead of going to him and being like, my dog died and you're not this and you're not doing this and da da da, why don't you go to it in the positive and go, honey, I just like, I need a lot of attention right now. I'm feeling needy. I need extra loves and kisses. Like, I'm really bummed
Yeah.
out about the doggy. And like, I know this is needy and whatever, but like, I really, can you just like, I just pour it on me, pour it on me lately because I'm kind of hating it."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What a difference, right? So
Oh,
I think people who
I know.
so you got to address it as a positive. You can make it a throwaway. You can make it a nothing instead of making it a grave, serious conversation. Even though it feels like that to you, it doesn't have to be that way.
Exactly. Yeah. No, like because I do a lot of relationship work as well, and I'm sure this topic comes up for you a lot too as a confidence coach is, how do I speak to my spouse? And it's sort of it's so simple. It's sort of like, this is the issue and this is what I need. In other words, don't because sometimes I have women coming to me saying, well, he should just know that.
Yeah.
How can he not know that about me? We've been together for X number of years. He should know that. And I'm like, well, no, he's not a mind reader. It's up to you to tell him that this is what I need. And yeah, like just
And that's
expecting
speaking
the other
up.
person to read you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Um,
know it's very interesting when
one thing.
relationships, we tend to, it tends to be more of a, like, for example, if you had just a regular roommate who was a friend of yours, you would not address things in the
Yeah.
household that you would the way you would a spouse or a family member. And I think that that sucks because we treat our friends a little bit better sometimes than we do others. But no one likes to feel
Hmm.
like they're being nagged in any kind of way, particularly not from a woman, right? This is the sad state of our affairs that, for example,
Right.
when I used to write comedy, we know that what wouldn't work would be like a woman ranting and raving and screaming usually, but it would be funny if a guy did it. And it's really just because of social stuff, because nope, because bitch, nag, the associations with that. And so it doesn't work in real life.
Hmm.
And men do have that like, and no one wants to be mothered or scolded or told what to do. And you wouldn't either. So I think, again, it's like asking for what you want. And it doesn't even have to be like, hey, this really bothers me. It could be, hey, you know what? I really prefer it when, right? Versus
Right.
you don't need to bring in a negative always. Sometimes you do, depends on
Right.
what it is. And so it's about
Yeah.
phrasing and tone and all of that. And you're much more likely to get what you want out of life when it's no different. You don't go into the boss and go, you better give me a raise, asshole. I mean, well, that's not going to work. So, you have to obviously
Yeah.
worry about this kind of stuff, but it's all achievable. And I've worked with this too with couples as well. Again, this mind reading thing or again, making deals like asking for something. Let's say you're really working extra shifts right now, and so you can't pick up the dog poop outside or whatever your job was. You know, you don't go to your spouse and be like, I've been working all this time. Like, can you just pick up the dog poop? Like, it'd be nice every once in a while. Oh my God, what? Oh, you just lost lost everybody with that attitude.
Right.
Instead, a pleading and a reasonable tone of, honey, you know what? I'm working all these extra hours. I found that I'm just like that extra dog poop thing. Just I can't. I want to cross it off my list. You mind taking care of that for the next couple of weeks?
Right.
What a
Right.
different
Yeah.
fucking vibe. Like your husband's more inclined to be like, of course, than coming in and accusing and like
Yes.
the person that thought that their husband, so you're more willing to accuse someone of not being able to read your mind, which is a skill nobody has, and then
Mhm.
blame them for the thing that they weren't, I mean, versus just telling them what you want. Then it's a different conversation when the person doesn't. So you can be like, hey, I thought we agreed. I asked you and you didn't do that. Then that's a whole nother conversation. So a lot
Right.
of these wants that we have in life don't have to be presented as serious, grave, negative, blamey, or any of the stuff. And you're more likely to have success when you're just like, hey, I have an idea, or what about this? Or yeah.
Right. It doesn't have to be this perceived conflict that they're conjuring up in their minds,
But
right? I
when you're
think
not
that's what you're
confident,
saying.
you
It's just sort
perceive
of
everything as that. When you're not confident and you have low self-esteem, you're
exactly.
perceiving everything like that, and everything's a threat. But the truth is that what's more of a threat is the aftermath of you not speaking up and what that does to you and your soul. And everybody who has been through that knows what
Mm,
that's like. The difference with me is that I go through life with very few regrets in this way because there's a lot of things that I've not left unsaid. I don't, I don't, you know what I mean?
I okay, a couple things because okay, so what if I know. I mean, that's why I that's the thing that I love about you, and I think so many of your friends would say the same thing is Elle is authentic. Like, we don't have to read Elle's mind. Elle is
Nope.
going to tell us exactly the way she's feeling, and we love that. We love being around people who are like that. Um, Now, what would you say, like, because some people, sometimes I have women coming to me as well that will just the people pleasers. Like
Oh,
we
the
know that
worst. The
about
worst.
that. Yeah. Yeah. And they'll say, I'm an empath. I'm an empath. And I'm just kind of like, so what
You
does
can
that
draw
call
boundaries
like
around
for
that. So you can be an empath. So if you're an empath and so some empaths, like for example, I have a friend who is extremely empathic and she went into a spiritual school, and this spiritual school that's like 3 years, in a lot of the groups, they're talking about probably past traumas and some of the hardships that
right.
they've been through in life. And it was too much for her. It was
Yeah.
too much for her, and she at least was able to acknowledge that and go, "I think I need to pull myself out of this program because I'm almost too empathic and it's affecting me in negative ways to constantly hear about these
Mm,
things." Not that she just
mm,
couldn't handle the emotions behind it. It was literally affecting her. So, again, this goes to, if you know something about yourself, don't put yourself in situations then where you're going to be triggered. So if you're extremely
mhm,
empathic and that's an upsetting thing for you, then you need to mitigate what you're exposing yourself to. Or work
mhm,
with someone who really understands the nature of empaths, and maybe there's some other way. There's tons of videos on YouTube about empaths and how to navigate these kind of things. But I
mhm,
think all of that's just an excuse. All of it's an excuse for not being who you really want to be, or an excuse for not being who you wanna be. And also,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like, for not doing the work that you need to it's sort of like, "Okay, this is who I am."
Right,
It's
it's
taking that
stamping.
identity.
That's right. This is just my identity. And you go, "Okay, great. Well, how's that working out for you?" And usually it is not working out. That
Mm,
specific thing that the person keeps declaring. I've sometimes, like, narcissists, for example, if you
yes.
get into something with a narcissist and you criticize them, they'll say something like, "Why can't you just accept me for being me? Why
Mm,
can't
yeah.
you?" And
Yeah.
and and then oftentimes my response is like, "You don't even like you." Like, that, like, it's so obvious you don't even like you. Don't give me that shit. You want other people to accept what you don't even like it. How's this working out for you? Well,
Right.
they can usually never see it because 'cause they're narcissists and they can't take criticism, but that's kind of a classic, this standing their ground like, "Well, I why can't you just because you suck, because who you are
Yes.
sucks, and because it's
Right.
not working and it's causing all these problems, so you're gonna fucking dig in your heels even more there, and you keep going around the bout with the hamster with the problems until you go, 'Hold on, it's me,'" you know? And so,
Yeah.
and this also too, you're gonna have so many let's talk about people pleasers for a second. So if people, like, don't
Mhm.
really understand what that is, some people might misidentify themselves as the people pleaser, meaning they're like always trying, like, for example, if I were at a party and there was a conflict that happened between two people and it became awkward for everybody, I would be the person to jump in and try to diffuse it. Not
Mm.
because I'm afraid of it, because I'm like, this is awkward for everybody. Let me see if I can just get this so this doesn't go farther for everybody. Like, I would
Right.
try to be a mediator. That's not what I'm
Yes.
talking about, people pleasing. Or, yes, you want to do nice things for people. People pleasing in itself. So, and if you are out there and people have said this about you, or you say it about other people, which is like, oh, Jenny, she's too nice. That's her problem. Oh, poor Bob never gets the vacations at work off. Oh, the problem is he's just too nice. No, the problem is Bob, Jane, whatever, they're liars. When you're a people pleaser, you are a liar, because what you're doing is in order to avoid people rejecting you, or you want them to like you say things that you don't mean. It is literally the ultimate in just lying. Like, so
Mhm.
it could be anything. You're dating someone and they're like, "Oh my God, I love Chinese food." And you're like, "Me too," even though you don't, because you say some shit like that just because you want someone to like you.
Right.
So what happens is when you're then kind of lying and mirroring other people, you get into covert contracts, passive aggressive behavior, and you can never really believe that that person is going to trust you, because you have shown them a fabricated bullshit version of you. And so that never works
Exactly.
out. And it is the bane of my existence. Like, if I sense someone is a people pleaser, forget about it. Don't have time, not interested. These are also people that are jealous. They're kind of like hoping for your failure secretly. And this is, again, back to authenticity. That's the one thing that we love about confident people, is they're authentic. And everyone loves authenticity. Why? Because
Totally.
we trust these people, because they're saying what they mean and they mean what they say, you know? And I have
Yeah.
I've had friends since I was 7. I have a lot of good friendships that I've had for 30 years. I've had like 1 or 2 minor, maybe we're in a political debate for a minute, little hiccups, and that's it. The reason is because if something does go down or get uncomfortable, I would just call it out. I would say to my friend, "You're being kind of a dick now." And they'd go, "Ah, shit, you're right. I'm sorry. Bye." And we're done. And it's over. There's no
Yeah.
resentment. I didn't speak up. So now a year later, I'm like, well, remember that conversation we had last year? And then now it's blowing up.
Right.
And so it's so
Oh.
clean to have friends that are confident as fuck as well, because they speak up. They tell you what it's like. I'll give a great example of someone doing it to me recently. I'm a very protective, loyal kind of friend. So if you were to come to me and tell me that, let's say your husband was being a jerk to you or something, oh, it's going to be hard for me to, like, I'll get the murder clause out. Like, I'm ready to be like, "Ooh,
Mm.
how dare?" And I know
Mm.
this about myself.
Right.
I usually have to, like, just don't, like, it's just a protective thing in me. And so my friends know this about me. And so not too long ago, someone prefaced a conversation with that. They're like, "Hey, I kind of just need to vent this out, and I need you to just sort of listen and hear it. And don't murder anyone yet. Wait till I get to the end." And so I knew what they were saying. They were like, hold the claws back until you hear everything. Again, I love my friend for that. Thank you for also telling me what you need. I have another friend who went through some rough stuff lately, and she called up and she said, "You know what? Normally I'd want to be turned around on this. Like, when you have coaches that are friends, we vent and then we go, all right, how do we get to the other side?" She actually, and she's a coach, and she
Mhm.
said, "I don't want to get to the other side right now. I kind of still want to simmer in my anger right now. And
Mm.
so please don't try to
Yeah.
turn me around." Great. Thank you for telling me what kind of
Mm.
friend I need to be in this conversation, because now I'm going to be that friend who's going to be bitching and moaning and venting with you, and let's just get it all out. And so thank you,
Yeah.
because, and so thank God I have friends like this. This is how it should be. We need to tell people what's up. And she probably learned that from before, knowing I know Elle's a coach. She's probably going to want to turn it to the positive, because all coaches would. I don't want that right now. I want to just be negative.
Yeah.
Okay. You're my
Right.
friend. I get it.
Right.
Right? So these are
Yeah.
all very
Yeah.
clean communications, and I don't have a weird unspoken weirdness and stuff with any of my friends. I rarely have any fights and arguments and things like that with my close friends, I think, because we call each other on our shit, and that's kind of what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, and since we're talking about people pleasers and narcissists, like that's one thing I've noticed in terms of the relationships when I work with relationships, they seem to attract each other. It's like negative and polar, like opposites just go,
Yeah,
and it's like, and it's awful. It's awful because I mean the narcissist is like
the worst.
loving it, of course, and pleasers just think that this is normal, this is yeah. I mean,
But you know what I
I
noticed, though, over time? People who are people pleasers, whether they don't identify themselves or not, they're not happy with life. They're not. They're not happy.
No.
They are not happy with that. And now let me give you a people pleasing. So I have a friend who's a recovering people pleaser. He actually read the book by
Okay.
Dr. Robert Glover called No More Mr. Nice Guy. He realized he was a people pleaser after getting out of a marriage after many years, and so he went into like men's groups and he's really working on it. And I saw it come up. We were taking a walk one day, and he was telling me about a date he had gone on with a woman and how they had a really nice 2 hour conversation, but that he didn't really want to meet her. His people pleasing came up and he felt bad, like he owed her something because she had spent 2 hours with him. And what would she think of him because they had a nice conversation? And he basically was almost arguing for going on the date, even though he didn't want to anyway. For what? For what, right? But in his head, it was
Mhm.
like this strangers out there might have some impression of him, or that this 2 hour conversation, it was great. So then that warrants it. And he felt bad by not giving her that. He didn't want to go on it. I finally said, don't go. What are you doing? That's people pleasing. You're still in the people pleasing. Catch it now. The difference is he caught it.
Yeah.
The difference is he was aware of
Mm.
this thing happening. He didn't want to do it. He was
Yeah.
going to do it anyway for some dumb, stupid, like what? And again, look, we do things we don't want to do sometimes because we're good people. You're going to call me and your car's going to be towed. I'll go help you drive it. Does anyone want to go do that? No, but I want to do it because I'm your friend. So now the
Right.
motivation changes. So he caught that. But see, for me, I'm not a people pleaser. I wouldn't care. I've had 2 hour conversations with many of men online that, online dating that I never met. I never felt obligated to meet with them just because they spent 2 hours and had a great conversation with me. There's nothing about me that feels like, well, they might have a bad impression of me then because I spent 2 hours and I didn't go on a date. I don't care. It has nothing to do with him. I only really
Right.
care about me. That sounds selfish, but that is really the truth behind confidence, and it doesn't mean you're not you don't care about other people. But so that are some interesting things that come up with people pleasing that I see with other people, and they could be simple ones like that, like feeling obligated to go on a date with someone because they were so nice and they talked to
Right.
you for 2 hours. What are you feeling bad about? It's a stranger online you fucking met. No one's telling, not saying
Yeah.
anything negative to them. You're just, and it was a struggle for him, and he's
Yeah.
55 years old. So this work, it doesn't matter how old you are. I would just say get to it as soon as you can, because you are going
Mhm.
to uncover not only pitfalls of confidence, which I had, there's pitfalls of people who are highly confident, but more importantly, gaining the confidence to be authentic. And I think that, I guess I never had any shame about saying what I felt and thought. However, I have had to choose my battles more wisely as a very confident person, not jump
Yeah.
into things that aren't my business. Maybe being feeling so freely with expressing my mind has pitfalls with diplomacy. Wait, think about it. Don't send the
Right.
email right now. Give it a
Yeah.
minute. All of those things are pitfalls of highly confident people. But on the other end too, and I have a whole chapter in my book on shame, which was my Achilles heel. So I was confident in almost every area of life except for personal or romantic relationships because I had been hiding the fact that I was disabled when I was 22 and have an arm disability. Now, I look normal. I can play a game of ping pong with you. No one feel bad for me. I live 99% pain free all the time. I was just too embarrassed. I felt it was so shamed about being injured. I felt like someone was going to look at me as weak. I had just such a thing about it that it really kept me away from being vulnerable and having true, like authentic, um, true emotional vulnerability connections with loved ones. And it really wasn't
Mm.
until I acknowledged that and dealt with my shame that I was able to finally become confident as fuck, meaning inside and out. So
Mm.
for me, that was the area. For you out there, it might be some other area. Maybe you're confident as hell at work, but not in personal relationships, or vice versa. I know someone who's confident as shit in relationships in terms of the boldest person to declare what they want, what they're not. I mean, amazed. Like they should write a book on how to communicate in relationships. Yet they can't go ask for the raise. Ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it, it's so
Yeah.
funny,
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's yeah,
but it's
it's
resolvable, and it should, and you should work on it because again. And I pointed this out to my friend. I go, "Don't you think that's really interesting that you are so boldly confident more than anyone I know in just relationships with other people, but yet like romantic relationships, yet you're having trouble going and asking for a
see, and you
freaking raise."
Yeah, and I mean that's what I love about doing the work. That's what I love
Yeah.
about therapy. Like it's getting so curious about yourself. Like, what is that thing? Like
Yeah,
why
where is
like
that
I think
coming
the
from?
deeper well, yeah, the deeper meaning like of what you just illustrated there. It's sort of like why do I have this need to please? Like why would it bother me if that person actually doesn't like me? Like big deal. They don't like me. Big
And
deal.
most of the people that people pleasers wish like them, they don't even like themselves. I was just
Yeah.
talking with someone about this on an interview discussing the Enneagram, which I think is very valuable to find out what your
Mhm.
personality type is. If you don't know about the Enneagram, just go take a free online personality test and dive into that because that was probably one of the most revealing things to me in my life to
Same.
was it?
Same. Oh, yeah, and I give it to all my clients now
Oh,
because
I'm
I
so
just think,
glad.
I don't know when you did yours, but when I did mine, like, this was my revelation. I read part about the weakness,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Um, you know, like, that's actually people actually see that in me? Like, I knew that, but now, it's like, "Oh my god. This is true. This is actually true."
Well, and
So
for people who so the Enneagram, Enneagram, just look it
yeah.
up. But here's the thing, once you figure out what number you are, then do yourself a favor, go onto YouTube and type in Ian McNay, McNay. He's some British dude who did a bunch of interviews with people of each number. So that's what really killed it for me. I watched a video of him discussing with other people that were eights, three adults who had studied the Enneagram, and they
So
had,
was I.
are you an eight? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and they were literally speaking me. It was so revelatory, and one of the things was, again, 8s, particularly who are called the challengers, have trouble with vulnerability, which was, again, what I'm talking about with the shame and everything else. It was so
Totally.
on point and lots of other things too. And I
Mhm.
won't go into the details of what an 8 means or what this is,
No.
but this was probably one of the more revealing things because here's the thing. You can go to self-help, read my book and whatever, but what's interesting about the Enneagram is very specific and it really targets the things. And so I felt that versus just reading, watching an interview of people describing what their life was like at eights, what they realized their issues were, their positive aspects. I literally was
Yeah.
watching like 3 6-year-old people just talk about me. I was like, these are my people. This is exactly who
Yeah.
I am. So
Yes.
it's very fascinating. Please look into it, everybody, because I think it can really help you identify what you need to work on. And also
Ex
can be helpful, of course, if you know someone else's number in work or business and you can kind of get an idea of how they may think and operate about things. And then I did do the Myers-Briggs test and I did it 20 years apart and it was still still the same.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. I've never done that one. Yeah.
I wonder
But
if you'd be the same as me, but it was similar to an 8. I'm an ENTJ, which is like only 3% of the population. It can and it's interesting, but it describes me sort of to a T, and it was very much like the Challenger and the Enneagram. But anyway, getting back to this, doing the work, I think what you said is just getting curious. This is like really good stuff because the
it
more you
is.
work on you, I'm telling you, man, so many wonderful prizes come in, gifts come in, you attract better people, better friends. Um, and honestly, learn how to communicate. So, for example, knowing what I said earlier about me being such a protective friend, if my friend is on the phone and they start describing something where I'm like, I want to like, "Ah!" I put
Yeah.
it on mute. I put it on mute so that I don't interrupt because I force myself to be like, I have pull back the claws,
Mhm.
breathe, let them get to it. Don't jump in right away. And here's the thing that is very characteristic of an 8 because we hate injustices of any kind and we're always for the
Mhm.
underdog. So if someone is like being wronged or something, or I feel that, you want to jump in. You want to jump in and fix it, jump in and rescue. And again, that's the lesson is choose the battles wisely, take a little bit more time before jumping in. Um, and so, again, those are things you can do. Or let's say you need help with listening or whatever. So put the phone on mute when someone's talking, or if you know you're going to jump out. Um, I
Yeah.
think also, too, an important key. other than what we talked about with not every time you have to speak up about something needs to be confrontational, how you can pose it in a positive
Yeah.
way. But aside from that, what was I going to say about I just lost my train of thought. I can't believe it.
I
Sorry.
know when you get excited about stuff, it's so
I
easy
know
to
I'm
lose
so
your train of
passionate.
thought.
There's like so many things I want to say about this. Um,
Well,
yeah, but go ahead.
what would you say okay, what do you think about the future of the 20-year-old and 30-year-old women look like? Because,
You mean the
maybe
women
that's
who
a
are
bit of a
20 and 30 now?
yeah. What what do you think like, first of all, like, most of your clients, where would they fall into in terms of an age group
Oh
that
my
you feel
gosh,
like they
I've had clients who are like 20 to
yeah.
73.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it 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 really doesn't matter. First of all, my thyroid coaching spans all ages, but so does, like, my
Mhm.
writing and life coaching too. For example, I had a woman came to me, and she had a very interesting life, and she was, like, 75, and she's like, "I finally wanna write a memoir." So, again, it spans what I think I'm more concerned about, for younger people is that I did not grow up with social media, and it's a blessing. And I
Exactly.
think the most important thing I could say to young women out there is A, you have to be pro women, stop competing with each other, read my book, get confident, get self esteem, don't deal with jealous, stupid, dumb bitches. Like, get rid of get
Mhm.
rid of the stereotype that's out there because they're out there and they exist. Get rid of it. Be no different than me telling a guy, stop hanging out with a guy smashing beer cans on their forehead. And okay,
Right.
so it's no different. But one of the things is really important is that I think people really need to be careful of what they're saying and doing when it comes to social media and maybe not realizing that as a young person. Unfortunately, it is like, for example, if there was social media when I was young, I would have been canceled 1800,000 times.
Yeah.
The shit I would have in fact,
Yeah.
my friends and I were all like, "Oh my god, we got so lucky. We got so lucky. There'd be evidence we wouldn't want out there. It would be disaster." So I think that that's a hard time living in this day and age, growing up in your 20s and 30s and worrying about everyone's filming you at something, you going somewhere, but you do have to think about it. Every future employer can make some type of assessment about you based on what you're posting. So, I think the past few years has been very important. Now, I would just say, like, tread lightly. Be careful as to what you're posting, what you're liking, what you're commenting on. It can come back to haunt you. And I can tell you right now that if I had it then, it would have already haunted me. So
Oh.
please be careful. Please be mature about it. You can erase a tweet, but that shit's really going to be there forever unless you catch it quickly. So just be careful about how you're navigating the world because it can actually affect your career now, and
Mhm.
that's a bummer. No, so for example, like, even if an employer sees your Instagram page and maybe that employer completely believes with all of your political beliefs, they're still not going to like it that you're out there talking about it
Mm.
because they don't want the
Mhm.
association with a one side or the other. And so again, like, this is a
Right.
really tough world to navigate and again, you say whatever you want out there. You say whatever you
Mhm.
want. You have free speech, but it does also have
Mhm.
consequences.
Yeah, I mean, if someone asks you for your opinion, give it. Otherwise,
Or give it
why
free, but
bother?
notice that you're probably 50% of the people then are not gonna like you because if it's a divisive topic and you're speaking out on it, great. If you feel it's that important to your life to do something. What I find, though, is that most people who are ranting and raving about topics that are not in their wheelhouse, um,
Yeah,
A, it's just you're just stirring up more drama, so that's, I think, just bad vibes.
exactly.
And then on the other side of it too, I don't know, I feel like you're jumping into an arena that is that the hill you're willing to die on? Because most of those people aren't actually calling any congressmen. They're not going to any rallies. They're not showing up to argue anything. They're not donating money to
Yeah.
they're just blabbing their mouths. So, like, is that worth it?
Yeah,
I don't think it is. But
right.
again, if it's
Yeah,
worth it
yeah,
to you, great. But just know that as consequences, don't be upset when maybe you don't get the job or someone doesn't hire you because of it or doesn't want to do business with you because of it. You cannot blame them then. Those are the consequences of free speech.
exactly, and you just have to ask your well, I mean, you have to ask yourself, "Why am I doing this?" Like, and,
Yes.
peel that back a little bit. Is it attention? Like, do I feel like I need attention? Do I feel like I need to join some sort of community? And if I do, why?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up
Like,
because that
what
goes
am I missing in my life?
Yeah, and this goes to something I talk about in my book called Nonversations. You want to try to avoid getting into conversations and starting conversations. So what's a nonversation? It's a conversation that goes fucking nowhere, and we see them all the time online. In fact, Brian Regan in one of his stand-ups
Exactly.
made a great joke. He's like, "Oh, I saw something I've never seen before. Someone wrote a politically divisive post, and someone responded, 'Wow, never thought of that. Thanks for changing my mind.' That never happens." So you do have to ask yourself. I remember sitting
Yeah.
with my mother and a bunch of her 75-year-old friends, and they were talking about all the politics arguments on friends on Facebook. And I can't believe Mary thinks this and da da da. And I was like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? Why are you engaging
Mhm.
in these conversations? Because
Mhm.
here's the truth. When you are bringing one of these things up, you're not doing it for a real true philosophical debate about it. You're not. You're doing it because you want to tell everyone they're stupid for not thinking the way you are and that you're right and they're dumb. That
Yeah.
is all. And so what good is that? So you're
Right.
not really, and if you asked yourself, because the truth is that like I used to start conversations with someone who felt on the opposite spectrum of politically and social issues as me. I don't know why I did this. I finally stopped because I realized, if I brought up a point that was about my point, they're not going to change their mind, and I'm not going to change my fucking mind. Am I open to my mind changing? I'm not. Not on this
Exactly.
topic, not on that topic. So why on those topics that I'm sure about would I get into an argument with someone who wasn't? It's a non-versation. All it does is stir up and ignite cortisol and all sorts of bad fight or flight feelings
M
and anxiety,
Yeah.
and you're wasting everyone's time. And the truth is, if you really look at it, you're there just to be an asshole. It's really true.
Right.
Or just to be nasty or point the finger or be like, "I'm smart about this and you're all dumb if you don't think this way." It's rarely a true spirited philosophical debate where you're gonna really listen. None.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
So,
they're time wasters.
this
Yeah.
is a great segue. Well, absolutely, and I was gonna ask you, what do you do for stress? And like you said there, like, all that does is raise cortisol, and, like, who the hell wants that? Like, no one. There's, like, besides getting out of bed in the morning, and maybe, preparing for an exam where we need a little bit of cortisol spike, but other than that, like, there's nothing good about doing that chronically throughout the day. So, what do you do, Elle, about stress? What do you do? Like, let's say, like, you were
Oh,
just ignited by, something like you say your friend said, and what do you do?
you know what? I actually have very little stress in my life, I would say, I think, compared to most people.
Great.
One of the things I'm adamant on is sleep. 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night if
Mhm.
I can. That's not to say I don't have some bad nights or weird things during time changes, but no, I'm addicted to getting great sleep. That's consistent. I also exercise. So, I'd say my mood and hormones and everything is probably balanced through the diet and lifestyle that I live, which is a paleo primal ancestral diet. And having my
Perfect.
thyroid managed properly, the subject of my first book. Um, so that really helps with stress. I also am very blessed to live a stress-free life. Get to make my own schedule. If for some reason, like 2 days from now, I wasn't feeling good, or let's say someone like this happened to me recently, someone special in my life for many years since I was a kid died, and I was very upset. I'm very grateful and very lucky that I have the schedule where I could just hang out in that space for a couple of days. A lot of people don't. They gotta get right
Mhm.
back up, feed the kids, get to school, da, 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 so I get that. In
Right.
that case, it's a little bit harder and you're gonna actually have to make time, but I will tell you the things that I do in the morning. So, what I love is on YouTube, you can type in almost anything that will have, for example, cozy cabin ambiance with a fireplace. And there are
Mm,
hundreds of
mm.
videos and they're like on hours for 8-hour loops. Oh, I
Yeah,
love it. I put
yeah.
that on first thing in the morning instead of putting on the news right away before checking my email.
Mm.
So right now it's winter, and even though I'm in California, I put one with like snow outside the cabin and a fire
Hmm.
crackling, and then in the summer I put like tropical beach waves. And I gotta say,
Mm.
even having tropical beach wave sound or fire crackling when I'm doing my work on my computer in the background is so relaxing. It puts you into a vibe. Ocean sounds apps.
Yes, I do the
I
same.
literally will
Yeah.
turn off my phone and ignore it for a while, although I live in fire danger territory, so we do have to keep our phones on a lot. Um, so those
Mm.
are some other trips. I mean, I do believe
Mhm.
taking some time in the morning and before you go to bed to kind of chill. I don't believe in watching TV from bed. I believe in certain
Mm.
separations of space for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I do a lot of self-care stuff, whether it's a massage or,
Yeah.
whether it's exercise or I hike a lot. I'm in nature a lot. I really believe in nature
Mm,
healing and grounding oneself, and I've seen it so miraculous, even results in other people who have decided to embrace nature. And I know that this is not always available to people who might be living in downtown Chicago, let's say. But that doesn't
right.
mean you can't have a backdrop. Like there's
Plants.
backdrops or plants or again like posters or have playing on the background without sound, the ocean in Hawaii or the 4K drone video over
Exactly.
Hawaii and beautiful images around you. And so I
Mhm.
also bought a set. They're really cheap on Amazon. I think like $30 for like 9 electric candles. And I literally have a remote and I just boom, boom, boom. So at night, my place is lit up
Oh,
with candlelight. And, so there are
nice.
lots of things you can do to soothe and ease. And I think lighting is a big part of that in my life. I really can't deal with fluorescence and overheads. And so colors can be another thing too. I definitely am very turned off by certain colors. If I walked into someone's house and there was like a red room, that's the last room I would want to be in. So you can maybe
Mm.
paint a door, paint a wall, something that's
Yes.
going to evoke feelings of calm, like blue or, yellow or things like that. So there's so many things you could just do at home very cheaply. Like I have a fake plant over here, a big fake plant because there's
Mhm.
not enough light in this area for me to have like a real one of that size. One of the best like $70 purchases I have. It makes,
Ye
you know? So even if it's not
exactly.
a real plant. Um, but first and
Yeah.
foremost, and I mean, anxiety, and there's a great a book called The Anti-Anxiety Diet. And I've interviewed her. She's lovely. And also
Oh,
memoir.
Leanna Warner w was it Leanna Warner Gray? No.
No, and I'm so bad. Let me look it up because she's really great, and I'm so bad with names.
Yeah, no, I recognize the title of the book as well, and I just can't think of it right now, the author.
I know I'm gonna shoe myself for this because I know her so well. The
That's
anti-anxiety.
okay, I can
Allie
also
Miller. Allie Miller.
oh, yes, 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 yes,
That's
yes,
right.
yes.
So a lot of people do go to paleo primal ancestral living. I mean, you can do so much for specifically for anxiety because
Mhm.
paleo primal ancestral living is the ultimate in adrenal management and blood glucose management because of
Mhm.
the high fat, moderate protein, low carb paradigm. I won't get into all the details of that, but
No.
I would just say that that really helps with even mood and tone. So, for example, if you're eating a high carb diet and you eat a bowl of pasta for lunch with nothing else, you're going to want to fall asleep by 2. That's not going to make you fun, or you're going to be cranky or
No.
whatever it is. So, to have one's insulin and blood glucose steady and low, and these things are literally it's just mouth to anus. It's what are you putting in your mouth? So, you can really start there,
Yeah,
with mood and stress. Um,
lifestyle.
yeah, absolutely.
Sleep, relationships, yeah,
Yeah, getting rid of
nutrition.
toxic people, that's another part of my book. Get rid of the
Mm,
downers, stop being a downer. Are you trying to heal from something? Are you in a downer mood? Guess what? Stop watching Law& and Order then. Stop watching about murders and rapes. Stop putting negative
exactly.
stuff in your brain. Get to the stand-up comedy, laugh, watch beautiful
Yes.
things, inspiring stories. So anyone who's going through any kind of difficult time, emotionally, mentally, physically, get rid of the negative influences. Maybe you need to read the news instead of hear it at this point. Maybe you need to watch comedy and turn the people that I know have trouble sleeping. I'm always like, well, what do you? What, well, I watch Law and Order every night before bed. Well, what the?
Yeah, yeah.
Is there ever a good episode of Law and Order? Isn't everyone like someone's dying or murdered or raped or like I?
I know,
And you
I
wonder
know.
and you go, well, maybe that's part of
Simple
it.
things.
Yeah. Well,
Simple baby steps, but everybody's gotta start making them, you're right. So, okay, just a few more
yeah,
questions, and
sure.
then I'm gonna fire off some, like, rapid fire
No problem.
questions, but actually, I know I have to leave you go soon here,
Okay.
but,
I'm good.
well, like, okay, so what would be the perfect day for you? Just so
Yeah.
people get to know you a little bit better. What's your example of a perfect day?
Oh, well, I had half a perfect day yesterday.
Oh,
So a perfect day for me. Okay, so I mean, if I were in a relationship, then it would probably be doing some of these with my significant other, but
yeah,
I would choose the same thing single or not. So,
yeah,
um, wake up, chill, have coffee, lovely morning, then go on maybe a hike with someone, like
mhm,
in nature, hike with a friend. If I could afterwards, I'd go swimming. I would do those 2
Mhm.
things together because that would make the perfect day for me, or
Mhm.
work, maybe lift weights afterwards, but if I could do hike and swim, and then, like, go home, hang out, maybe I nap, maybe I watch some favorite TV shows, and then have, like, a big dinner with friends or friends and family or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a super chill, even though I'm extremely extroverted, I am somewhat of a homebody. I'd say I'm more like
Mhm.
60, 70% homebody than I am, um, like, social butterfly. Uh,
Right.
I
You take
yes.
care of you,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
Like
really outgoing, but I also really enjoy my own company, and I also think that
mhm.
that's really important because when you have high
Oh,
self-esteem and confidence, you really like being with yourself. I remember, I went to visit my mom for a couple of weeks last summer, and she happened to have come off antibiotics for something, and she wasn't feeling well, so her energy wasn't good, and we couldn't do our walks and whatever. And she kept saying, "Oh, I'm so," because we're just sitting in the living room hanging out. And she was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's so boring. I feel so bad." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? I love what's going on in here in my brain. I
mhm.
could stare into space for days on end and never get bored. I am
Mm,
totally fine. I love every thought that I'm thinking. In fact,
y
this is fun for me. I totally
yes.
am good just hanging out, staring into space." And she felt very bad as if like, and finally I kept saying it to her. I was like, "Mom, I
Yeah.
literally, I love this. This is
Yeah.
peaceful, lovely, enjoying my thoughts time." And if you're a person that can't sit still, and look, I'm real high energy and type A, but I'm also type Z. And you got to have both, right? So if you
Yes.
find yourself having trouble with this or you don't enjoy your own company, no one else will either. So figure it out
Exactly.
and love yourself and get into yourself so that you can. And again, it's a very self-sufficient. So when the pandemic happened and there were lockdowns, I was like, "Oh, I was bred for this." I was like, I was like,
Mm,
this is my jam. I'm totally gonna
y
be fine." And the people that suffered were the people that find their value from external things like concerts, whatever they have. Not to
yeah.
say that that's a bad thing if you love concerts. I have a friend who loves
No.
concerts, and she's totally fine with self-esteem. But you know what I'm saying? Looking for external stimuli, and or FOMO people had a real issue. I don't have any FOMO ever, so I felt bad for those people, and I thought, I hope this pandemic they've gotten to maybe have a little bit of a different or more balance with that, where they feel good being just sitting with themselves.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a few questions. Okay, so do you prefer magazines or books
Oh,
by
gosh,
your
what?
bedside? Hmm?
Oh, books for
Books.
sure. Yeah,
Okay. Do you like mountains or prairies?
mountains.
I knew that.
Both, both, but mountains because 'cause I'm living in them. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Baking or cooking?
Cooking.
Cooking. Okay. Favorite childhood TV sitcom?
Oh, man. Sledgehammer.
Oh, never heard of it. Interesting.
It's someone just mentioned it on Twitter not too long ago, and I was like, "Oh, thank God someone mentioned it." I think I have all the
Oh,
DVDs for it still. Sledgehammer was only a couple of seasons. It was very slapstick, like in the vein of Airplane and things like that.
okay. Okay.
It's a very funny show, but that, and I remember loving it, and my mom just being like, "Oh my God," that she couldn't get enough of it, and she was just thought it was kinda like, "What?" And I loved
Oh,
it. So,
I'll
actually,
have to look.
later on in life, I got to meet the lead actor, David Rashi. I was working in a casting office, and he came in, and I got to be his reader, and it was literally one
Oh,
of, like, a great moment of my life. I cannot believe, and by the way, he had done a million things since Sledgehammer, including Shakespeare. He's a very, like, classic actor, and here I am, and I said, "I know you probably don't wanna hear this because 'cause you're so worth much more acting-wise, but I fucking loved Sledgehammer." Like, it was one of my favorites, so yeah.
and that's something I just have to ask. Is that why you left, Chicago, Illinois, and went to LA?
Well,
Is it
actually,
be
no.
oh,
No, I actually left for school, so I transferred colleges. I was in a school in Indiana, and I ended up transferring schools to California, which brought me here,
okay.
and then it wasn't until after, I sort of got disabled from the corporate world that I thought, "I'm gonna need to learn to use my voice," and then I got into acting and sketch comedy and all that stuff.
Great.
Then I moved
Okay.
to LA, yeah.
Okay, I was just interested. Showers or bath?
I like both, but I take more showers than baths.
Okay. Sweet tooth or salty?
A little bit of both.
Okay. Okay. Romantic comedy or action thriller?
Romantic comedy.
Yeah. Perfect first date would be a lunch or a long walk?
That's tough. I've had both of those. Sometimes I've gone on hiking or walking dates, and I find those to be really great because you're not just stagnant. You're seeing things out there and you're moving and
Yeah.
walking. Also, with the pandemic, that was like a nice thing, like because you would be in California.
Mhm.
Both or either. I could just, as long as I'm just getting to know someone and we can go somewhere we talk, I don't care where it is.
Okay. Favorite dessert, indulgence, or processed food?
Oh, hands down, chantilly cake from Whole Foods. I don't you can look
Okay.
up chantilly cake and I'm sure
Okay.
people make it a variety of ways, but that is forget
Right.
about it.
Okay. Okay.
So good.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
Like one of the traditional which is your favorite? Thanksgiving,
Thanksgiving.
Christmas, what is it?
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
It's my
Yeah.
favorite meal.
Yeah.
I love that
Okay.
meal so much. I could eat that
Yeah.
meal
And
several
see
times a year.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And I like
yeah.
it
Well, who
because it's
couldn't? Yeah, for sure.
non-denominational. It's non-denominational and everybody can enjoy Thanksgiving too, which is what I like about it. It's a universal holiday. Easter means something about Jesus.
Yeah.
Christmas means something about Jesus or whatever, all these other holidays. So I like Thanksgiving because it's universal too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's all about being or having gratitude, right? I mean, that's the best thing
You're right.
about it,
Yeah.
I think. So, okay. Well, I know. I feel like I kept you a little bit too long here, and I'm
No
sorry
problem.
about that. But Elle, I will definitely link all your work in the show notes. And yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about the paleothyroid solution here,
Sure.
but any woman who's struggling with thyroid issues, you are an expert in
Yeah, that's if you're
that
watching this
field as
right now, I'll
well.
hold up
So,
the other book in front of me. But this is my first book. So I just want to let everyone know
oh
on my
yeah,
website, if you went to ellruss.com and you clicked the free stuff tab,
yep.
you could download a free thyroid guide. You don't have to read my book to know exactly what test to get, what time to get it, how to find a doctor, blah, blah,
Mm,
blah. I did that so that you don't have to spend all sorts of money you don't have because I did when I was suffering. So you don't even have to buy my book.
okay.
So free thyroid guide. And then also, and you'd have to go to my Instagram for this because I have well, I have a couple of free things. On my website, Free Thyroid Guide, I also have a free audiobook. And that audiobook is free guided meditations and affirmations. There are two guided meditations, one for healing, one for abundance. And then there's two affirmation tracks, one for confidence and one for abundance. That's free. And then the third free thing I have, which you can grab from Instagram in my highlights, that says free stuff, is I have the third book, or not really a book, but I published a manifestation journal for confidence, gratitude, law of attraction, self-esteem, and it covers
Mm,
all of these areas. It's a 6-month journal if you buy it printed on Amazon, but I'm offering 3 months for free in an interactive PDF. You don't have to print it out; you can type it in there, and you can just go grab that and download that. You can always DM me or reach out to me and say, "Hey, where's that free?" PDF of your manifestation journal. Happy to send it to you. So yeah, I offer a lot of that so people can start to get on the road to recovery no matter what it is, whether you're a people pleaser or self-esteem issues or whether you have thyroid issues. And then of course, I also mentor writers. I used to teach an 8-week writing course, but now I usually do one-on-one with people. And so if you have a book to write, a
mm.
TV, screenplay, a speech, doesn't matter what it is, a series of blog posts, and you need help knocking it out and getting it done, that's what I do one-on-one with people. So that's the other area of expertise I
What
would
your
say is
resume?
coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, anything. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. And see, this is so good you did that. I don't have to explain it for people. You just did a brilliant job of explaining it yourself, everything that you have to offer. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a great day.
You too. Thanks so much.
Okay, bye. Thanks again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. And if you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next week, treat each new day like it was your last, because each new day gives us a chance to do life a little bit better.